welcome to Talk Tantra to me. Today, I talk Tantra with Ekaterina. She is a sexuality coach. I am so grateful for her content and so appreciative that she is here on the podcast to offer her perspective of living an expansive, juicy, and sexy life. Thank you for being here, Ekaterina. Why don't you start by telling us a bit about your journey with becoming a sexuality coach? How did you discover this passion and purpose?
First of all, hello to everyone, and thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be here. Well, my journey started, I guess, really far in my childhood when I kind of decided that in order to get attention and love from other people, I need to diet, and I started dieting. So then I kind of went into, I went further into fitness bikini competition, and in all these years of dieting, over like 18 years, I've realized that all the body image issues that I've had were preventing me from experiencing pleasure because I was so disconnected from my body. Mm-hmm. And then I started coaching. I got into fitness coaching, then, it didn't serve me anymore. And then I started doing intuitive eating coaching for food freedom, helping women like me who were struggling with food addiction and body image. And I realized that, for myself also, when I sort of healed myself from all the diets, I've realized that I wasn't sexually expressed as I could have been. And I was always kind of like, I always felt this sexual energy in me, but I was like, why am I ashamed of it? Why am I not expressing this here? Because it's, it's coming out of me, but I'm like stopping it. And talking with the women and clients and whatever women I talked to, I realized body image was preventing them from having beautiful sex, having orgasms, and, expressing themselves in a sexy way, like dressing in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And this is how I started doing my own work and then implementing it with clients. And I just kind of went this route and I'm super happy right now with kind of the path that I've chose.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I definitely resonate with this story of body image. And I think that it's something that all of us can relate to at some point in our lives. And whether it's specifically like an insecurity that has to do with our body or an insecurity with, like a short-term issue or long-term issue or something external from us that causes insecurity. And I love that you specifically called on this idea of coming back to the self-love. And I'd love to get more into that as we progress. But I love how you approach pleasure in your content on your feed. And so can we go into what does pleasure mean for you?
Yeah, I was actually thinking of it. I had a therapy session today and, like she was asking me questions because I'm sick right now with COVID. Uh-huh. And I was thinking, like, how do I feel? Because I'm noticing, like when you're sick, when you're physically unwell, it's really hard to experience any sort of like sexual pleasure. There's no desire, like, because by the Maslow pyramid, you have to be well first, and then the other thing comes. And I was thinking, pleasure for me, one of the sources of pleasure is feeling my body. So it doesn't matter, like to me, pleasure is not always sort of like a positive and nice sensation. It is just a sensation sometimes. So as long as I'm feeling my body, and let's say when a period starts and I'm feeling the pain, and I'm like, oh my God, this is pleasure because that means I'm alive. I'm a healthy woman experiencing a period. And just from the start, I'm like, oh wow, this is awesome. It still feels like shit, but and also like pleasure is everywhere in my daily life. I love food. I'm a huge foodie and I enjoy different textures, flavors, smells, and, going to different restaurants and countries and trying new food. And at the same time, pleasure is talking to you. You're a wonderful person and you're so pretty. And I'm just enjoying this moment right now and spending time with my family, my friends. And obviously sexual pleasure I feel like it's one of the most intense experiences of pleasure.
Yeah, I love that answer, the breadth of it, everything, and especially seeing like the painful things as pleasure. That's such a such a big part of my work is alchemizing, like, how do we turn something that is traditionally really painful or even looked at as like a burden or gross, like menstruation, and make it something that can be like a celebration of life. And that's essentially like what it is. Like, this is celebrating the ability to bring life into this world. And I know for myself, when I switch the narrative, mentally on like how I look at, my period, my moon blood, I went from like really kind of dreading it to really celebrating it and saying, like, this is my excuse to go inward. This is my excuse to take time for myself, to say no. This is my excuse to be in my body, to feel. Because like, I think the cramps also changed. Like, first of all, they're just not as intense and not as, they don't happen as often, but also when they are happening, it's like, whoa, my body is like moving and doing this of its own accord. That's crazy and so cool. And yes, like there's a little bit of pain there, but it's also like, it's like a heaviness. It's like a sit down, like, be with yourself reminder that feels like a mother almost. And I really appreciate that too. So thank you for speaking into that.
You're welcome. This is, like it's my pattern from a childhood was to avoid and numb negative emotions like sadness, disappointment, all this stuff. So I could only allow myself to feel good emotions because it was good to feel them. And I remember there was a moment when I was doing some sort of like a movement meditation, and it was like a question guided. Where do you find pleasure right now? And I was so sad with something. And I realized that the pleasure was in me feeling those sad emotions that I've never allowed myself to feel. And I felt sad at this still, but then I felt such a wave of pleasure in my body, like it's tingling, and it felt so good. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, this is amazing.
Absolutely. This is such a timely conversation for me as well, because my New Year's word, like I choose a word or a theme every year, and this year it's
Yeah.
receive. And I think when people think of the word receive, they're like, oh, I'm going to receive all this money, or I'm going to receive abundance, or like, I'm going to receive love. And that's part of it. Yes. But there's also receiving the lessons, receiving the pain, receiving the sadness, and fully feeling it. Because to me, you can only receive all of the quote unquote good stuff as deeply as you've received all of the challenging, painful things. Like, we live in a world of dichotomy, and that's what it is. So when we're able to fully welcome it all in, we open up our ability to, call in other things too, because we're fully being there for it. And we're telling the universe, I'm ready for more. Keep it coming, which is really powerful. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my New Year word too.
I love this word because you're going to laugh right now. My word is the same, and it's been the same since 2021, and I'm keeping it for 2022 too.
I love it. Keep it going. It's
It
such a
gets
powerful.
better. Yeah, it's very powerful. It gets better, but I'm still learning, how to fully open and receive everything, because it's
Yeah.
not just good in life.
Yeah. There's new depths always.
Yeah.
Cool. So moving from here, and I love that we kind of touched on this period thing, because I think that that can also be a source of insecurity, for women. It definitely was for me for a long time. But kind of overarching, how does body acceptance relate to sexuality and pleasure?
So what I came to realize in my own experience, whatever I've learned with my clients, is when you're not accepting your body, it creates low self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
If in short, and when you have low self-esteem, is really kind of like hard. You're always in your head, and it's hard to relax. It's hard to be in your body. So specifically in pleasure during sex and intercourse with your partner, or just like hugging or whatever, doing things, if you're always in your head, it's hard to be present and enjoy the moment. When you're not present and enjoying the moment and being in your body, like, what are you going to feel? Like, you
Mm-hmm.
can't access the sensations because the sensations are in your body. Obviously, there's still some things that we can experience, but it's not even, I don't know, 1% of what's possible when you're fully, truly present and focusing on what's going on right now. And specifically, my example with body image, when I was so insecure about my body, and, I've looked the same, and I was even skinnier. And I was still thinking when I was bad, and I remember having sex with my that time boyfriend, and I would be thinking, oh, how does my stomach look? oh, I hope he's not going to. So instead of like enjoying the moment and, his touch and kisses, I'm thinking about how my stomach's going to look if I'm in this position. And a lot of times I would say no to sex just because I had a bad body image day.
Wow.
So imagine, it's like, what the heck?
Yeah, I'm sure so many people can relate to this. I know that there has been very similar circumstances for myself along the way. What can we do about this? Like, what can the listener do if they're relating to this? How do we shift that perspective? Because it's so true. If you're in your mind, you're not going to be able to feel what's happening in your body, right?
Yeah. So I guess one of the main tools, my favorite ones, I would say, meditation. It gets you into your body. It allows you to become an observer of your thoughts
Mhm.
and, slow down. Breath the same way. Just, you don't even have to go too far with like crazy fancy breath work. Just taking a slow, deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth, or both out through your mouth, whatever is best for you, and kind of like getting into your body. And you can do it right before the sexual experience, or in the sexual experience, in the intercourse, when you are breathing deeper. So you get into parasympathetic nervous system. And I mean, obviously, it's better to work either with therapists or with a coach, or read the book, like with certain techniques, and kind of work on yourself first, in order to change the body image and how you relate to your own body. Because it's not a one-day thing, and it's taken me a few years, to get out of my body dysmorphia. And also, I would say what was super helpful for me, and I do it with my clients, is intuitive movement with touch. So you touching yourself by yourself, moving in, like a slow music or whatever music you like, and kind of like focusing with the closed eyes, focusing on your body, focusing on your touch, and
Mhm.
non-judgmentally feeling what you feel. So in the beginning, when you touch your belly, and if you hate this belly, you're going to be like, oh my God, this is so much fat. But when you learn how to, observe your thoughts and be objective, your belly actually feels nice because it's soft.
Mhm.
Your elbow doesn't have fat. It does not feel as nice because it's hard. And,
Mhm.
like overall, usually, soft touch is nicer. And when you hug a person who is, let's say, has a little more fat, it feels nicer, like hugging a
Mhm.
toy is better than hugging a treat. I love hugging treats, but, it's hard.
Oh, I love that analogy so much. And I think that it's really important coming back to this concept of your relationship with yourself is number one. And that the deeper that you meet yourself, with pleasure, with touch, the deeper you're going to be able to receive from a partner, coming back to the word receive too. So I really love that we're starting here. I definitely want to get into, how couples can support each other in this journey as well. But going into sort of the self-love journey, I love the practices that you had suggested with the conscious touch, slowing down, really being with yourself, taking the time to like almost seduce yourself, right? Uh,
Yeah.
so beautiful. And there was another exercise that you had talked about on your Instagram that I personally love and would love to have a little dialogue about, and that is mirror work. What is mirror work to you?
So mirror work is, I think the first person who came up with this is Louise Hay. But I
Mhm.
think she was doing like basically you can just take a hand mirror and look at your face and say to yourself affirmations, I love you, you're beautiful, like
Mhm.
different things. What I do with clients and what I was doing for myself, and I sometimes still do it. Basically, you're standing in front of a full-sized mirror, preferably naked, if
Mhm.
it's not accessible at this point, because some women are very avoidant. So it's better as little close to have as little close as possible, and looking at your body objectively,
Mhm.
and going from head to toes and saying all the things. Wait a second. COVID is like messing with my brain.
I mean, I'm honestly like really like good for you. Like we didn't do our first call partially because I got COVID and I rescheduled. So I'm like, you get it. Like take your time. I think you're doing great. So
Thank you.
Go
So
ahead.
basically going from head to toes and looking at your body objectively. And if any negative thoughts come up, you go back to the top of your body. So the idea is to go through your entire body without saying anything negative about your body. So what it helps with is kind of like shift the perspective. And because,
Uh-huh.
like women, when we hate our bodies, we're so conditioned to see only bad, like we
Yeah.
see no good. But then at the same time, like, okay, my eyes, they're dark brown,
Hmm.
they're actually beautiful. Or let's say, okay, I have no problems with my face. I had problems with like my huge bulky arms. And I would be like, oh my God, they're so big, they're so manly. But then I look at my arms, I'm like, okay, these arms help me eat.
Yeah.
Or these arms help me work out or hug people and, this kind of things. And in the beginning, it's very hard to obviously go all positive around your body. But the more you do it, the better it gets. There was a point in my life when I was doing it every day for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it just, something is very magical when you look at yourself in your eyes in the mirror and not just like posing, but truly being with yourself.
Mm.
It's so like, I don't know why. I guess we never see ourselves as we see other people, do you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love this exercise. I think that it's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing this exact process. And I think definitely finding the ways to see that each of your body parts, whether you could see that there's room for improvement or you're totally in love with them, like that as a whole, that's what makes you a whole human, which is an incredible experience that we're having. I'd love to share like my mirror work. So like also love this self-love sort of integration piece, but I also infuse like a self-pleasure into it sometimes as well, and this is something that I offer to my clients a lot. um and that's to do, self-pleasure in front of the mirror. Like if you want to fully love yourself in shadows and light, there's no more direct route than like by looking yourself in the eye and the genitalia whilst you make love to yourself. So that's something that I would encourage listeners to do, as well as like maybe step two, like maybe start with what Ekaterina had mentioned and then maybe build up to this idea of really making love to yourself in the mirror. I know for myself that it's helped with my confidence, definitely body acceptance on a whole different level, and really just like empowered me to take ownership for my pleasure, and also just get like a better sense of like, wow, I mean, both feminine and masculine embodied individuals, their, genitalia changes so much in the range of pleasure, which can be like a really fascinating thing to witness too, to see like, wow, my body is so powerful, which is really cool. So I definitely recommend that too for the listeners.
This is an awesome exercise. I've done it a few times, but like accidentally, I was kind of like
Yeah.
masturbating in front of the mirror, and I was like, oh shit. Wow. It was such an interesting and amazing experience. I did not expect that. It's very empowering.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one that I think can be good for people is like actually videoing themselves, like, self-pleasuring. This was something that one of my other guests had suggested, Fatima. She was like one of my first guests. And like the idea is like if you can't get off on yourself, then like how can you expect other people to? Like you need to like own like your sexuality and like who you are. And I actually haven't done that one specifically. I've definitely taken like sexy sensual videos of myself, but I should own up for that exercise. I think that that's like step three. So
Yeah, we
well,
gotta do it.
we got to do it. We got to go in. Cool. Thank you so much for including that as well. Let me get back here to see where we're at in our lineup of questions. I think that at this point, I'd love to kind of direct into how can couples support each other in body insecurities and feeling sexy.
Yeah, so I don't exactly work with couples, but it's obviously I advise women. And I would say for the most part, women struggle with body image. Men are kind of like, oh, I'm perfect, you know. And I know I'm not obviously excluding men out of this, and I know men struggle, but mostly it's women. And what I recommend is to for women to be open and
Mhm.
share how they feel,
Mm,
because and every time, you know, like it's the same as when they can talk to their partner about what they desire, what they want, how it's better to approach them, you know. It's the same kind of thing. Like everyone is so afraid of talking about it and so
mhm,
hesitant and kind of like embarrassed. But at the same time, men, like if a man loves you and if he cares about you, they're always so open and welcoming to listen to you and to make you feel better and have you more pleasure. I've
mhm,
never had a man who was like, oh, I don't want to give you pleasure. Like they almost had even more pleasure from giving me pleasure, you know? So obviously he wants you to feel relaxed. He wants you to feel more, and he wants you to receive the best orgasm and the pleasure and all the feelings, sensations in your body. And
mhm.
just honestly telling him how you feel and just asking for support. I think it's the best thing that you can do. And any woman can do. And being honest and communicating, and then going into the sexual experience, and maybe, you know, if something bothers you, just again communicating in the process,
Mhm.
because vulnerability is such a, again, one of the magical things.
Yeah.
When people are vulnerable and the other person, if they care, they will always support you. And
Yeah.
it just it creates more intimacy and closer relationships.
Yeah. Really good points there, especially addressing like, I feel our culture is so, women's worth is so wrapped up in physical appearance. And it's not to say that men don't have beauty standards. There's definitely, like, if you look at the ads and the media, like, men are definitely portrayed as being like very different than the average man. But I from my perspective, and I know the world is changing really fast, and there's different, gender roles and identities, and I want to be inclusive of all of that, but understanding the way that our society has evolved over the past thousands of years, we've had these very traditional roles where the women's worth is very much in her beauty and the man's worth is very much in what he does. And so
Yeah.
understanding that dynamic and how that can play out in the ways that we show up sexually is super important. And I totally resonate with this idea of just like communicating, being open, like holding space, for that conversation, and that can also lead to deeper levels of intimacy because you are just being really in your truth in that moment. And I also think coming back to some of the exercises that we were discussing at the beginning that could, help you get more into your body, like you can share them with your partner. Like you had talked about breath work or meditating. Like I love the idea of meditating with your partner before intimacy, or doing some breath work, or just taking a few breaths together, maybe eye gazing, and even, the touch exercise of really feeling into, the touch, taking turns giving and receiving that kind of touch that isn't necessarily erotic but is very, energetic and sensual, and allowing that to be a part of the pleasure, can feel good. It can feel good to warm up in that way, because I think oftentimes we just rush right into, sexual touch and penetration, and it's kind of a shock to the system. Whereas if you can like
Yeah.
slowly go in and warm up your brain too, to say, hey, brain, we're gonna like focus on the pleasure right now. We're gonna go into our bodies, gently. I don't know if you have anything to add on that or.
Yeah, I just want to add one exercise. It's super quick, and it's just 5 minutes, as you said, eye gazing. So you
Mhm,
can do basically sitting on in a lotus position, and the woman sits on top of the man, basically, bellies next to each other, eye gazing and synchronizing the breath. So literally breathing in together, breathing out together for 5 minutes. Oh my God, it's going to change your life. It's so amazing. And it only takes, you know, no time almost, and connecting with the breath, and at the same time touch and eye gazing, it's such an intimate experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that you can build up to as well. People often in the beginning like struggle a little bit with this deep of like being seen, and seeing can feel challenging because it's like, just not a part of our culture. But it really opens these doors. So you could start with, like what I like to do is I like to put on a song, and you can have songs that are, 2 minutes, or you can have songs that are like 15 minutes if you're talking about, the ceremonial mantra sort of songs that, are available as well. And so you can maybe start with a short song, and then, like, I'm surrendering for this amount of time, and it feels a little bit
Yeah.
more manageable as you're getting started, and then you can go, deeper into it as well. And again, the deeper that you go into it, the more doors might open. And I also suggest, after doing that eye gazing exercise, to take a moment to do a mono dialogue, to like take turns sharing what your experience was without
Yeah.
any interruptions, to just like hold space for that, because that can be really revealing as well.
Yeah. It's so wonderful. Like you're speaking of it and it just feels so good.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just have a couple last questions to close up, but if you have anything else you'd like to add at this point, or chat about, I'm open to hearing about that as well. Otherwise, I can wrap up with these last questions.
I think you can wrap up. Yeah.
Okay, cool, beautiful. So this question is a bonus question I ask all my guests. What awakens your arrows? What turns you on? What makes you feel erotically alive?
I love this question. Um, well, if I were to speak, what turns me on if I'm by myself, obviously, men turn me on, my boyfriend. This one is easy. But if I were to speak about myself, my own touch turns me on.
Mm,
And when I do some sort of movement exercises, intuitive movement, feminine movement practice, when I'm moving in a slow way or maybe a faster way, um, when I'm doing some sort of like a manifestation process, I like to do embodiment on a certain thing that I want to attract. And I'm like being in that reality. And sometimes I get so turned on. I don't know why it happens. I guess just the pleasure is out. um, Also, food turns me on.
mm,
I love food. When my boyfriend feeds me, and also when I like outfits and I like fashion and dressing up, and certain outfit can like, oh my God, turn me on. And lingerie,
yeah.
heels. Yeah. Palm trees. I love palm trees and ocean. Yeah. And forest too. Yeah. All the things. All the things.
Anything can, really, if you think about it or let yourself feel it. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, wrapping up, last question. Where can listeners find you or support you? Are you offering anything new at this time? This is your chance to share with
Thank
us.
you. Thank you. So I'm mostly on Instagram. You can probably link it because it's I don't want to spell it right now because it's a little complicated. Um, I'm mostly on Instagram, and I also just started TikTok. It's very fun. It's very short videos about sexuality, and I'm enjoying doing that. So if that's the platform of your choice, but I think to contact me on Instagram is the best way, to DM. And I'm offering one-on-one sessions for my 4-month sexuality program. So if anyone is interested, I am open.
Amazing, cool. And I will definitely link Ekaterina's Instagram in the show notes, so you can find her and follow her as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you again to Ekaterina for joining me today. And I also want to express my gratitude to the listener. Thank you once more for opening yourself up to the idea of sacred sexuality. With so much gratitude and love, have a sexy and spiritual day. And I'll catch you next week on Talk Tantra to me. Ta ta.